Good coaches adapt the players to the game. Great coaches also adapt themselves to the players. To be a great coach is to recognize what a player needs at that point to make the optimal progress and advance their long-term development. Sometimes they need to be pushed, other times they need to be left alone. Maybe they're teenagers and need help dealing with their first breakup, or maybe they're 5-year-olds and just need to get their shoelaces tied. The coach is there to identify the need to make the progress, but also bring balance between what the player brings to the table at that moment and what is missing. Let's talk about the counterintuitive balancing act. I will talk about balancing acts that the coach must do regularly in order to develop the players. Balancing act number one, the pre-game management. A fellow coach had their first game. For most of the 8-year-olds, first game too. He was so excited. He told me that he was more excited for that game than his own game as a player that week. Before the game, he told individually to each kid how this is the moment they've been practicing for the last several months and they should fight and leave it all out on the field. And the game started and nothing happened. Most of the kids were playing their usual game or were just frozen and seemed lost. He couldn't understand why. He told them to give everything. There's absolutely nothing wrong in the attempt to motivate your players or your teammates. But is that what these kids really needed? Many of them were motivated already. Plus, the parents and the families were excited to see them for the first time. They were building this excitement and anxiety for the entire week or month and dealing with something that was very new for them. They needed safety and familiarity from their coach, not a speech how this is Sparta and the life is their life. Balancing act number two, achieving high level practice. The players are humans, and they naturally get very excited at games and very unmotivated at practices. And you're a human too, so you feel the same. However, it is your job to counter that. At practices, you have to create environment as close to the game as possible. Firstly, it has to be a competition. You can yell all you want, bring the energy yourself, but there is only so much you will do. There is nothing like another player on the team trying to beat their teammate. There can be overloads, but like playing 7 on 5 instead of 7 on 7, but it can be 7v0 with cones standing there. The intensity will never be the level that you want. My favorite story when I was coaching in a group of kids in a rich neighborhood. They had everything the kids would like, and they were very polite and not very aggressive. I tried everything I can to get the players to compete. I talked to them, I played against them, I pushed them as much as I could. But what worked in the end was a prize. A plastic water bottle that I bought for $5.99, and they had bottles like that that costed like 10 times more. But this was worth it way more to them, and they really competed with each other for it for hours. Let me be clear, you will likely have to yell too. You can't act all like Carlo Ancelotti with like 12-year-olds practice and expect them to give their best. You have to set the tone and the level. The players will absorb the energy and the level of commitment, which eventually will be referred to as professionalism later on in their lives. Balancing act number three, the target and cover up of tactics for strengths and weaknesses. This is the most counterintuitive one. When there is a competitive game, you will likely use tactical tricks to cover for your players' weakness. If your left back is being overrun by their opponent, you might demand your winger to drop and support, or ask the center back to assist while your six drops in the backline. If you have great target men up front, then there will be crosses flying in whenever possible. You will change the game to adapt to the strengths of your players and cover any deficiencies. But practices are opposite. You will create game moments to expose the weaknesses and force the players to get the repetitions in. If they always cross the ball, you might narrow the field or force them to play through the middle. If your winger doesn't defend well, you might play them as a fullback at practice. As a coach at practice, you control the game rules, the objectives, the teams, the length of the drills. You control everything. And it is your job to balance the challenges that the player experience so they grow and learn new things by forcing them to practice the things they're not good at yet. Of course, you don't want to deny them the opportunity to show and improve the skills that they have, but you must not let them learn only one trick and never have the other tools for other situations. Balancing act number 4, the mismatch in the individual players. Unlike a professional team where players have to fit or they will be traded, you're likely running a youth team where other factors are way more important. Your players don't have the same level of skill or commitment. Likely the two things in common for these players is that they're born in the same year and live in the same neighborhood. I sometimes get players that clearly don't want to be there, and their players or their parents are actually making them play soccer. And sometimes in the same team, there's a player who believes that they will become a professional soccer player. And it's my job to balance that. I like to establish two things: ground rules and wide flexibility within those rules. Ground rules are things like respect for coaches, teammates, referees, parents, and everybody else. Ground rule is that we are playing soccer here together. Even when even when the kids are like 5 year old, we have to stick to playing soccer and not have snowball fights during the practice. Afterwards, it's fine. Before that, it's fine. Then within those rules and many other ground rules, there is a room for accommodation of that what the particular player needs. For a player that is struggling a lot to catch up with the level of the team, I will look for them to play some more games and practices with the lower level team. For a player that is above that level, I might loan them to play with the upper level team or an older team. It's what they need that I have to identify, and then I have to work to provide it. Balancing act number 5, complacency versus urgency. The high school I played for was the favorite to win that year, as most other years as well. We were comfortably winning every game, and some of them by a very, very large margin. Practices were fun, and we were cruising through the season. At halftime in the semifinals, we were even leading 2-0. However, one deflection from a free kick and one tight offside goal, and we found ourselves at 2v2. And then we started to panic. Our team got tired and overrun, and we lost 3-2 in the extra time. In fact, we regrouped and we thought we could win, so we started attacking so desperately that we got caught in counterattack, and that's how they scored. The role of the coach, as well as the players, is to balance the forces of complacency and urgency. As a coach, you must notice if the level of effort is dropping and intercept that trend and reverse it. On the other hand, if the challenge is so high, then it's important to prevent players giving up and freezing at the occasion. Experience of handling this individually comes with experience. But on top of that, it's the role of the coach to transfer those skills of managing emotions to the players. Balancing act number 6, behavior towards referees, other players, and so on. The final point I want to talk about is the control we want to put on players. We want to give them freedom to express themselves, to lead, to experiment and fail, to increase the aggressiveness and demand more from their teammates too. What we must help them do is control themselves. Being hostile against the referee when there is an injustice is somewhat natural, but not allowed. Fighting back against a provocation from an opponent might be ingrained, but the player will likely lose something with that behavior. Self-control is hard for us as coaches, but as you know, it's even harder when a player is in the middle of a high-intensity game, full of adolescence hormones and very little skills and technique to control themselves. So be a role model and help them develop this way. As you can see, the balancing acts of the coach is going to be in very different directions. They're sometimes asking for more aggressiveness, other times for restraint. Sometimes it's asking for pushing towards struggle, and other times it's asking for running away from it. Sometimes it's asked for challenging the players, and other times for helping them. The most important thing is to bring the player right in the center of that balance. They should experience going out of it, then experience the process of coming back. This is where the player grows and moves that natural center towards self-controlling human being that drives thoughtful actions rather than falls back on just reactions. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next one.